the garage. If you watched the last video, you saw that Mavy number 2 was wrecked. Poor little Mavy. And I put a new quarter panel on it. Today, I've cut in the back side of it before I installed that just for rust protection. But I am going to take a 3M superfine foam pad. I'm going to put a link down below. These are made in England. They are amazing to prep without scratching all the primer off. And then I'll be putting a sealer on it and then the base coat, clear coat. But what I'm not wanting to do is burn through this factory black. This is a factory part. Of course, there's no aftermarket, so there you go. But I'm going to go ahead and prep it with this and then let it dry, and then we're going to be shooting some paint on it with my Fujitsu Airless sprayer, which won't give me problems with moisture like I have with a regular spray gun. Let's get rocking. Let's get moving. I need to get moving. Couldn't really come up with a good phrase for that, but I'm going to start working on the truck. All right, all prepped up, washed with, I use just some clear laundry detergent. You don't want to use car wash because it has some waxes and stuff in it, so just use some like laundry detergent and it should be ready to go as far as like once it dries down. Now I'm showing you the factory rear quarter panel for a reason. This paint job is not a show quality finish. You can see there's a lot of orange peel in it, and the lights that are reflected in, you can tell that those aren't like, it's not a super mirror finish. It's kind of rough actually as far as like from a factory standpoint. Now this is water based, so and I'm using solvent. It should match just fine. Mine might be a little bit more shiny, especially after it's buffed, but I am not too worried about it because this is not a show car finish on this by any means. Okay, she's all prepped for the sealer. I'm going to let it sit overnight in the air conditioning, make sure it gets dehumidified, all the moisture's gone. Then I'll start masking it off for the sealer. I'll probably hit that with some ultrafine just to make sure there's no nibs or anything in it. And then we'll be ready to put the base coat on it and then clear, and she'll be back on the road. Makes it sound really easy. But I will catch you on the flip side tomorrow to get this thing masked off and get the sealer on it for this. No body work is needed, so awesome. Driving the Maverick up to the shop. I live in Middle Tennessee. This is like one of the most beautiful places in the whole United States. Watched the Titans lose today. That was freaking awesome. This house here, as a side note, they built it on spec. They're asking like 1.8 million and can't sell it. That's terrible. All right, so I'm headed to the shop and gonna try to put some paint on Mavy number 2. All right, it's the next day. Everything's dry and it's ready to be sealed up before we paint it. But I wanted to take just a minute on the Maverick truck forum. I go on there a lot because I do love my Mavericks, and I'm on the forum and I talk about stuff and people call me an idiot, and that's okay too. But Bruce W., I posted a picture of putting a quarter panel on, and he had a question. He says, what does the backside of the fender look like? And you saw what the inside of the fender looked like, but I thought I would show you and just go through a little bit of explanation because it is kind of cool the way these things are made. Here's the backside of the fender, and you can see that it's kind of white up in that area, and then it goes kind of gray and then black there. This is actually the bed liner coating that I sprayed on the truck, but you can tell right there there's just bare metal. That's where there was a bolt. But the way these trucks are made is that the whole thing, the truck and all, before anything else is installed, is dipped in a huge vat of rust preventative phosphate primer, and that's what that gray is. You can see the gray all the way up and down. That's what it looks like before it's painted, and then the robots paint it, and that's just really kind of the overspray from inside the fender well as the robot paints it. And this is done from me. That's where these doors were out on the back, and the overspray went there. But otherwise it would just be completely that gray primer area. And I guess obviously that's why these are a different primer, because they're not dipped like the whole truck is, and it comes completely different. But it does need to be sealed So that's going to be the next thing I do. I'm going to get my little inflatable spray booth, do a little bit of house cleaning in here, get all this stuff moved out of the way so I can spray the back fender with some sealer. And here I'm going to need to move this out a little bit on the top and the bottom so it gets in behind it a little. Everywhere else should be just fine because that's going to be like the outside of it. But here you can kind of see that edge. I need to push that out. Maybe put something behind it, take the bolts out, push it behind, so as it's painted, it kind of gets in behind that. But looks great as far as like the quarter panel goes. It's tight, but it should work. Should be able to paint this side of it. No problem. Let me start masking off and we'll get some sealer put on this thing. Alright, I'm going to use AP8110 Autobond Slick Seal White Primer Sealer. It's not like a high build primer. It's basically for sealing and priming what we're doing right here. So it'll work great. I'm going to get it mixed up. All right, deflated the paint booth and I moved her outside. The sealer looks absolutely beautiful. I'm gonna let it dry overnight, and then tomorrow I'm gonna hit with some ultra fine scuff pad, and then it'll be ready for base coat, clear coat. So I'm just gonna let it dry up real well. It feels pretty dry though. It's supposed to be like a 30-minute deal. Man, let me tell you, this thing is smooth as a baby's bottom. I'm not gonna put my hand on it, but I love those foam pads for prep work. They work absolutely phenomenal. That's probably like a 800 grit sandpaper. So I'm gonna let it dry out. Tonight we're gonna paint this pig and be close to being done with it. I'm gonna work on the bumper for just a few minutes. I've had this clamp on it. This piece was pushed out a little bit. Now it's recessed to here, which was where I would rather it be. And then on the back side, what I'm going to do is put epoxy along that seam, and it should be just fine as far as that goes. And like I said, I got a couple little nicks in it, but we're not going to worry about any of that. This is a work truck, and no one will ever notice that there's a little notch right there in the bumper cover. So on the bumper, I'm going to use some JB Weld plastic bonder, the world's strongest bond. Now whether that's true or not, I don't know. But on the back side of this little cut on the bumper, I'm going to put just some of this epoxy, and it should work just fine to hold it together. I'll be happy with that. It'll be fine. It'll be good. Yesterday I shot with this Fuji Airless sprayer, and I love this thing, man. It's absolutely awesome. You don't have that drop like a compressor does, like your pressure goes up and then down, especially with a smaller compressor. So that part works great. It also is very, very smooth gun. I like the way that it shoots. The only thing that I don't like is the gun. Unlike the FX3000 that I like using with the compressor, you got to take this thing completely apart every time you use it to clean it. You can't just spray lacquer thinner through it because it will not get the paint and stuff out of the nozzle and the internals of the gun. You got a lot of cleaning to do with this gun. So I've taken it apart. I've cleaned every portion of it. So tonight when I'm ready to paint, I'll shoot the base coat on it. Then I'll have to take it apart while the base coat's flashing, completely disassemble it, clean it up, put it back together, and then it'll be ready to shoot the clear coat. But you can't shoot base and then spray a little lacquer thinner through it and then spray your clear, because that will just booger the crap out of it. So little 411 on the Airless sprayer Fuji works great. Crappy cleanup. Alright, looks good. I got everything set up, ready to paint. Needs to be wiped down one more time with some rubbing alcohol and then tack ragged, and then be ready to shoot it. When you think about it, there's not a lot of area to paint on this rear quarter panel. A lot of it's hidden, top and the bottom. So see if we can make it look good. using the Autobahn ABYZZ1 Oxford White base coat, which is the color code for the white Mavericks. Mixed 2-to-1, ready to shoot. I tell you, it's hard to see where you've covered with the base coat if you've got a white undercoat. So, note to self, I might want to use gray next time. Just letting it flash out real well, but let me tell you, that Fuji Airless sprayer, I'm pretty impressed with it. It sprayed, if you crank it up all the way, that's where the best spraying is. It looks really just, right now it looks spotless, it looks perfect. Now, usually when you say that, that's when you screw up, step on the hose, blow something up. Who knows? But, man, that base coat just looks beautiful. Speaking of beautiful, there's my wife. While I'm waiting for the paint to cure out, I'm watching Aaron Rodgers and the Jets drinking a nice vanilla porter. I'll tell you what, the Titans, my team, laid a big egg this weekend. Our quarterback was not on top of his game. Alright, I'm mixing up my clear. I'm using Speedo Coat. Uh-oh. Beer cap. Using Speedo Coat. Clear coat. With some medium activator. This is the lesser expensive, and I have the best luck with this than even the high solids clear that I tried on the Jeep. I have a better, I like the way this sprays better than the high solids clear, so there you go. And it buffs out really nice, so I'm going to go with the cheap, inexpensive clear coat. Probably better than the clear coat that Ford used because they're so environmentally friendly. Shine is excellent. I am going to have to buff it, that's for sure. I've got some orange peel in it, but that clear is so thick in there. Shouldn't be any problem at all buffing it out. Got one little booger above the gas cap door where I took the took the tape off too quick, but I'm tickled with it. I think it looks great. So by the time we get it buffed, give it a couple days, buff it out, put all the parts back on, you'll never notice that it was wrecked. I'm kind of waiting a few minutes to close the overhead door because that can cause a bunch of dust and crap to fall down from the door. So I'm going to make sure that it's skinned over really well before I shut the door, and then I can finally go home. By tomorrow it should be ready to buff out. I kind of set pretty close to where I think I need to be as far as like the alignment on the back door. I think the color match is really pretty good. I don't think that you can ever get it perfect because the water-based crap they use down in Mexico is not the same as a solvent-based base coat clear. I think anybody that really doesn't know that this was replaced will never ever notice it, especially once they get all the other stuff on it and buffed out. I'm really happy with it. I think it looks great. And Mavi 2 will be on the road pretty soon. I'm going to go home, let this dry overnight, wet sand it down with some 2000 grit, buff it, and then we'll start reassembly. Here's my box of little parts with bags of bolts and miscellaneous sundrious items. So I'm going to start digging through here. That clip, this one, that'll be one of the first things I put on. It goes on the back to hold on the bumper cover. On this piece here, on the bumper, where it was split, I epoxied it from the back side. Let's see if I can see that. There you go. I epoxied the crap out of it, and it is good and sturdy. So that's where we're going to roll with that. I think it'll be fine. I was going to film putting the bumper cover back on, but I mean, it basically just slid right up on top of it. I guess because of the new quarter panel, and all you got to do is push it in on the sides and it'll clip in. It clipped in here at the top. Awesome. Put some bolts in it. This thing's done on the back. Alright, I'm getting close to the end. I got the bed cover on, but I need the tailgate on to do the final adjustments. This is the wire that goes up through the bottom of the tailgate, so I'm going to get that on there. I'm going to put a blanket down there because I've got to set it on there. Go put this blanket on the bumper cover. The Ford factory manual does say you need 2 technicians for this. Basically, I'm going to set it in there, get the wire running through it, and then one side goes over this post and the other one slides in there. There's a tension rod in the bottom of the tailgate, so it's not really that terribly bad. There we go. Alright. Now I'm ready to put the tailgate on. Alright, that's it. Tailgate's on. Got to put the keeper on it and the retaining straps. Alright, I'm out here. It's a little windy, but Mavi 2 is done. Super happy with it. Now, in hindsight, is there anything that I would do differently? Yes, absolutely. One thing in particular, if you look, I don't know if you can actually tell, if you look really closely, and I'm going to be more critical than anybody else, there's a slight color difference between the Oxford white that I sprayed on and the factory Oxford white. Alright, yes, the struggle is real. Alright, yes, the struggle is real. I couldn't live with it, so I went ahead and fine sanded off the parts that I'm going to paint. It looks good, that's fine. You can see the color difference between this and this. This is more of a greenish. This is a little more white. This looks a little bit darker. So because I'm not blending the door in, I'm just painting this quarter panel. It makes it more difficult. If that door was damaged and you blended it in, you could almost make it match, but the color is pretty much off. I don't know if it's just because of the years, the finish, or the mix, whatever, but I am trying to figure out how I'm going to get it to match a little bit better. Okay, long story or short story, I think I'll go like medium. As far as the Maverick goes, the installation of the quarter panel was not that bad, truthfully. Sealer went great, everything was fine. Painted it, and the color looked like crap. It was much darker and had kind of a little grayish, greenish tint to it. And that was the Autobahn ABYZ Z1. YZ is the paint code for this truck. And I thought, well, maybe it's because it was cheap paint, something's wrong with it. Tried to doctor it up. Here's some video from that. Now here's where I put that test spot. And you can see that the white actually does dry darker. So it's hard when you're spraying it, right, to see that it's not exactly the right color, especially everything masked off. So that's really the hard part. So this may be just a little bit darker, but you can tell that it is lightening up a little bit. So maybe I'm getting closer. Got it pretty close, but it still did not match, I guess, my standards. I mean, this truck is 2023, so I was hoping that it would look new for at least the year that it was made. So, I ordered more paint. Hasn't come in yet, but I decided today to go up to Sherwin-Williams in Nashville, and they make automotive paints, and they're one of the premium suppliers, and this is what their store looks like. Alright, I'm tired of jacking around. I'm going to go get a quart of base coat from Sherwin-Williams in Nashville, and we're going to see how well that matches, because this generic stuff from eBay is not matching at all. Sherwin-Williams Automotive, that's what I wanted to go to. They should be able to match this, I'm hoping. So I'm at Sherwin-Williams, woo-woo, and their paint chip is exactly like what I came up with. See how much darker it is? So they're doing a custom mix, I believe. But yeah, so that one is completely a different, and it's supposed to be up to 2024, so don't know why they're different. Sure enough, when I went into the store, I said I need some YZ paint, I need a quart of it, base, and I was surprised. They said not many people were using the water base, that it's all solvent based, so that was kind of cool. So they pulled out their paint chips and they held it up. I cut a piece off of the, where is it? Here it is. I cut a piece off of the old quarter panel and brought it with me as a joke, really, because, you know, at Home Depot you hand them a thing and they can test the colors, right? So I hand it to him, and he holds up his color chart of the YC paint that's been used in Ford vehicles since, I think, 1950 something, up to 2024. In fact, Noah's Ark, the interior, was painted in this white. Anyway, when he held up the color chart, here's what it looked like. Exactly like the Autobahn paint. It was no different than this paint was from the factory. So obviously the Oxford white is a little bit darker and a little bit grayer in all the formulas that they come up with. So what he did was he took this and he put it under like a spectrometer and measured it, and then they mixed up a quart of paint. Man, that's heavy. This is their most expensive paint, believe it or not. I didn't ask for it, but that's what he gave me. And it says platinum white is what it says. I'm not sure if that's an actual color or it just is a custom color, but it actually matches really, really perfect. So I'm super happy with the color match. This is a 1-to-1 ratio is what he said. Seems like it's really thick. One of the weird thing was he said, do you want it ready to shoot or do you want it where you can thin it down? And I was just like, well, what's the price of it? He goes, oh, it's the same price. And I'm like, I don't understand. He says, oh yeah, it's the same price. I said, so if you give me a quart ready to shoot, it's the same price as a quart that needs to be thinned down. He goes, yeah. And I said, so you're getting half the product for the same price? He goes, yeah, that's the way we do it. And I was just like, what in the heck? Anyway, I got a quart of paint that's matched up to match the Maverick, and he said we've had that problem before. I'm backtracking a little bit, but he said we had an RV that was made in 23 with the same color code, and they had the same exact problem. So evidently, the Maverick and the Bronco Sport for sure, and then maybe some of the pickup trucks, the paints that they use on that, the YZ Oxford White, does not match if you buy it from a paint store. You have to get it custom mixed up. This quart of paint cost me $156, which is incredibly expensive. But, you know, at this point, I just want to be done with it. And I want it to match. So this is what I'm going to be shooting tonight, the final time. And if it comes out pink, we're going to drive it that way because I'm tired of painting this stupid thing. So that's what I'm doing tonight. But that was really, really weird that the Oxford White paint that Ford's using doesn't match any of their old formulas. Crazy. Woo-wee. Let me tell you, I got the base coat sprayed, and you can see where I blended it to here, and that is one matching paint for sure. So much, much better. This is some really thick base coat. Let it flash out for about an hour, and then I'll start clearing the crap out of it. But finally, I got a paint match. From here to here, you can see, well, you really can't see hardly. There's base coat here and clear coat here. I just kind of ran it up, just a hair up. There was a scratch. And I'm just going to feather that in and buff it out. But man, let me tell you, finally, I got a paint that looks like the factory color. Man, I tell you, everything in my body says spray another couple coats on it. But then I would get a bunch of runs. When you're doing painting, sometimes you have to know when to stop. So do I put more coats of clear on it? I don't think so. We'll wait and see. But it is really, really wet. I don't have any runs whatsoever. It looks like it's going to dry down really nice. So if I put more clear on it, I risk just jacking it all up. So that's kind of where I'm at tonight. I'm going to let it sit for a minute and take a look at it. I mean, yeah, you got a little bit of orange peel, which should buff out no problem. My brother, and I don't know if I could call him my brother. I haven't talked to him in years. He's an a-hole, and I guess he's just trying to get the inheritance from my mother. However, the story goes like this. He used to raise pigs, and one time the pig was born without a butthole. He decided to operate on the pig, thinking you could make a butthole and the pig could live, and evidently the internal parts weren't there. So I said, what happened then? He said, well, the operation became an injury. Which I always remember that. That's probably 30 years ago that he said that. Anyway, at this point, if I am to paint any more on this truck, I could cause runs, trash, anything else. It looks really, really good. So tonight, I think I'm going to put a fork in it. It's starting to dry down really nice. I really don't want to mess with it anymore. I can sand it out and buff it, and there's plenty of clear on it. I put that last coat on really, really clear, heavy, and I thought, man, I'm going to get some runs, but it didn't. So everything's good. I'm going to put a fork in it for tonight, shut down everything down in the shop, clean all my guns up, and go on home, and then tomorrow we'll take a look at how the paint looks. But I can tell you this, that I'm sure that the color match is beautiful, and I don't want to create an operation that becomes an injury. I'm going to let it lay. All right, I'm about ready to head home. What do I want to start doing? I want to start pulling tape. I want to see how the color match is. I want to make sure that it looks good, but I am going to resist that. Don't do it, because you can make more of a mess by trying to pull tape off while it's still wet than just waiting till tomorrow and then pulling everything off. And that's what I'm going to do. And then we'll come back and look at the gorgeous quarter panel that I have created. Okay, it's the next morning. I'm going to go ahead and unwrap the mummy, and then we'll take a look at how it turned out, but I think I'm going to be pretty happy. Okay, I don't think I could get much closer of a paint match, truthfully. It looks really nice. It's got enough gloss where I really don't even have to buff it out right now. I'm going to let it dry up, probably a month, maybe a little bit less, and then wet sand it and buff it, but it glossed out so nice that I'm not going to worry about that. Let me get everything back on it, and then we'll take one last look at it. All right, it looks mighty fine. On the bumper cover, you can see that it's got a little mar there, scraped up here. That's from the accident, and that's going to fly, no problem. Paint color match was beautiful. I jacked this part up right here just a little bit. That's going to be a little bit of a touch-up later. But for the most part, 99% looks beautiful. I haven't even buffed it out. It's got enough shine to it where I can just leave it, let it dry out real well. In a couple of weeks, just go ahead and buff out that quarter panel. But if you walk past the truck, you would not at all notice that it's been repainted or repaired. So what did we learn from the Maverick extravaganza repairs? Well, I guess first thing is that the rear quarter panels on these bolt on rather than spot welded. So that's pretty cool that you can take it off and put it back on. Secondly, if you have a white one, Oxford white is not Oxford white. You can't just buy paint. You're going to have to go get it mixed up and not buy the color code because it doesn't match. Sherwin-Williams said they've been having a problem with that on the newer vehicles. So yeah, so Ford's environmentally safe water-based paints don't match their paint codes at all. I mean, you might be able, even if you blended it, it wouldn't look exactly right. That's going to be a challenge for some of the paints if you're doing body work on these. Third is I hope I don't have to work on this thing anytime soon other than just buffing it out. I'm just got my hands together praying that the driving gets better and the vehicle goes for at least maybe a little while without me having to fix a body damage to it. I love the Maverick. I haven't just given up saying it's a work truck. Who cares what it looks like? So that's cool. Coming up, I'm going to take Bluey and finish up some little bitty minor stuff like a handle and vinyl polishing, cleaning, and she's going to be up for sale. And then the next thing that's coming up is the granddaddy of all little trucks. My Toyota 87 4x4 is going to come over here, and I'm going to get that thing running and get that thing put back together because I love that truck, and it's a travesty that I have let it sit so long not working on it. I'm tired. I'm going back home. I've got a real job to go to, but the Maverick is going to be back on the road, and I am thrilled. I think it came out well as I can make it anyway. You got any questions, comments, post them below. Appreciate you watching. Lord have mercy. Let's not be working on this thing anytime soon. I'm Dave for the Redneck Garage. Keep turning wrenches.